Hello! Welcome back to Storytime with Quefish, reading other people's stories. This is going to be Chapter 4 of Roomba of Doom by GayDemonicDisaster, aka Scrap Heap Challenge, aka Kirsty. Reading it blind. Got the email when it came out and immediately realized that I can't read it couldn't read it because I wanted to read it blind, and I was not in the proper space to do a normal reading. So it's been sitting in my email box for however long it's been there. Chapter 4. L space. Again. And butt dialing God? Summary. Take your demonically possessed vacuum cleaner to work day. Part 1. Bob the Doomba accompanies Uncle Aziraphale to the bookshop for the day. Shenanigans ensue, as always. Crowley also has some explaining to do to his unconventional and tidy-minded child. Some bits of this chapter will make more sense if you have either read L Space, which is a safer work comedy fic that Kirsty wrote, and or other Sir Terry Pratchett books like Discworld ones, but it is by no means necessary. Explanation in the endnotes. I can't wait to read those. Aziraphale looked up from his book as he heard the familiar buzzing. I hope he doesn't have the chainsaw still. Familiar buzzing of Bob making his way across the lounge. He wasn't wearing a plant. Oh, thankfully he was also not wearing a chainsaw this time. Crowley had restored his regular carapace after an incident with the flamethrower where Bob got into an argument with the rubber plant for dropping too many leaves on the floor. The rubber plant was now in timeout on the balcony after the angel had intervened to stop yet another victim of the garbage disposal unit. Not that there was much rubber plant left to save. It was rather scorched, and only 2 leaves remained at the top. That's bad. This time, Bob was wearing a small red and black snake curled up in a perfect spiral on top of his lid. The serpent grinned at the angel as they scooted past. If Crowley could have winked, he would have. Aziraphale rolled his eyes. I'm not even going to ask, Crowley. He went back to reading his book. Crowley pouted and slithered off before Bob dived under the sofa, as that would have shoved the demon off the top anyway. Crowley regained his human form. You're just jealous you can't ride him. He slumped down on the sofa and flung his legs across the angel's lap. Bob said he was getting bored. Would you take him to work with you tomorrow so he can have a change of scenery? He can clean the shop for you, maybe terrorize a few customers for you if I give him his chainsaw back again. Aziraphale glared at the demon. Bob is not being let loose in my bookshop while wearing a chainsaw, Crowley. He may come, but he has to be on his best behavior. Crowley shrugged. No problem. Aziraphale tucked the charging unit under his arm as he walked down the street. Bob trundled after him happily like a dog. He wanted to walk as well, to get to see the sights. Occasionally, the angel had to give him a little nudge with his toe to help him over an awkwardly dropped curb. But it was a short walk, and the little vacuum cleaner seemed to appreciate the opportunity to stretch his legs. Wheels. Whatever. His lights glowed a happy blue. He carefully skirted around a pile of dog mess with visible distaste, and waited in front of the step while Aziraphale unlocked the bookshop, then picked him up to carry him indoors and set him down on the floor. I'll plug your charging port in over here in the study, dear. Enjoy yourself. The angel settled himself down at his desk to carry on rebinding an old tome someone had brought in for a restoration. Bob spun in the middle of the office area and took in his surroundings. He trundled off down the stacks, delighted to see lovely hardwood floors covered in bits of dust that his whiskers brushed into his suction port greedily and dispensed into the pocket lint dimension. He was a happy little appliance. After a while, Bob was surprised to see the wooden floorboards give way to cold flagstones. He paused and looked around carefully. He was still surrounded by stacks of bookshelves, but the building appeared to have changed somewhat. He was confused and beeped in alarm. He was lost. Presently there was a shuffling sound, and a gentle simian hand picked up the Roomba and cradled him in strong arms covered in thick red hair. "Ook," the creature said, and stroked the vacuum cleaner comfortingly before swinging off back the way Bob had come from, clutching the vac to his chest. After a few minutes, the wooden floorboards reappeared, and the shelves took on a familiar look. Aziraphale felt a tap on his shoulder and looked around into the familiar, if surprising, face of the orangutan. "Ook," the librarian pointed out and held out the Roomba to the angel. "Oh, hello again." Aziraphale looked down at Bob, held in the orangutan's hands. "Oh, goodness, wherever did you find him?" "Ook, ook," the librarian explained, and pressed the vac into Aziraphale's arms with a smile. The angel accepted it gratefully. "Thank you ever so much. Terribly sorry he disturbed you. I'll make sure he sticks to the front of the shop for the rest of the afternoon." Aziraphale set Bob down on the floor again with a pat. "I think you'd better recharge for a bit, dear. Don't go wandering into L-space unless you know what you're doing." Behind them, the ape knuckled back off, down the stacks, and back to his own library. "Toodle pip," Aziraphale called after him. After a recharge, Bob set about cleaning the main shop area with a vengeance. That was until he came to the circular rug in the center of the room under the cupola. He hated rugs. That's why he liked Crowley's flat so much. Lovely, smooth concrete floors and no tassels to get caught on. This rug, however, was ancient and rather threadbare. It had tassels. He was stuck. His wheels spun and he reversed frantically, tugging the rug with him. He didn't want to beep and alert Aziraphale to his predicament, worried that he'd get in trouble for making a fuss again. So he kept on reversing until he hit the far wall, dragging the rug along too. He paused and pondered. He tried reversing his motor for a moment, and with a bit of wriggling, managed to unspool the cotton weave from his brush, and with a quiet beep of relief. He couldn't put the rug back, but at least he wasn't stuck anymore. He was sure Uncle Aziraphale would put it back later for him. He trundled off, giving the crumpled fabric a wide berth, and continued to clean. Bob wheeled back to where he'd got stuck and set about vacuuming the middle of the shop. It had a funny pattern on it. He didn't think anything of this as he circled around, brushing dust up into his suction port until the floor started glowing around him. Then he stopped in alarm. A head appeared above him and looked about in confusion. Bob let out a startled beep. The head looked down at him. What are you?" it inquired tetchily. Bob beeped and reversed hurriedly back to the office until he bumped into Aziraphale's chair and let out another startled beep in fright. The angel looked down at the Roomba, whose lights were flashing bright blue in a panicked pattern. "Whatever is the matter, dear?" His peripheral vision noticed the bright white light emanating from the center of the shop. "Oh, no. No! Bob, what did you do?" Aziraphale scrambled to his feet and straightened his tie nervously. He walked hesitantly to the middle of the shop where the Metatron waited, looking irritated. "Principality Aziraphale, why have you summoned me?" the Metatron demanded. I didn't exactly. It was an accident. I am most terribly sorry." Bob peered out nervously from behind his feet. Aziraphale glanced down at him. "It was an honest mistake, I'm afraid. Everything is tickety-boo here. My vacuum cleaner appears to have accidentally activated the circle. Terribly sorry, sir. It won't happen again, I can assure you. The Metatron looked singularly disgruntled. I was summoned by a household appliance? He demanded. Yeah, I'm afraid so, sir. Again, terribly sorry. Freak accident. I'll make sure to erase some of the sigils to break the circle once you're gone, sir. Please don't smite him. He didn't mean it. The Metatron rolled his eyes at the angel and disappeared with a faint, chiming noise. The light disappeared. The circle was deactivated. Excuse me. Aziraphale hurriedly grabbed a cloth and set about rubbing out some of the key chalk marks to prevent future accidental activations. Bob quietly scooted around the edge of the room and slunk back to his charging port, where he remained for the rest of the afternoon. Crowley dropped by at 5 p.m. to walk home with both of them. He tucked Bob's charging port under one arm and took Aziraphale's arm in the other. Bob scooted ahead happily, brushing up the odd bit of leaf and litter as he went. Crowley and Aziraphale chatted as they walked, until Aziraphale had to yank Crowley back to stop him from tripping over the Roomba, who was stopped in the middle of the pavement in front of them. Careful, dear. What's wrong, Bob? Is Timmy stuck in the well? Aziraphale peered down where the vacuum cleaner was busily brushing at the pavement, moving backward and forward an inch or two at a time, his motor buzzing in a frustrated hum. He stopped, and then moved back slightly to reveal what he'd been trying to suck up. Aziraphale stared at the item. He nudged it with a toe, then raised an accusing eyebrow at the demon, whose eyes darted about in a panicked shame. It was a pound coin, superglued to the pavement. Crowley? The demon tried and failed to effect an air of insouciant innocence. Would you care to explain to your son why there's a coin glued to the pavement? No, he whimpered in a quiet little voice. Aziraphale glared at him. You see, Bob, there's this stuff called glue, and it makes things stick so they don't move. And Bob faced him, flashing in confused expectation. Sometimes people think it's funny to glue things down, then watch humans try to pick them up. Aziraphale shot him a look. And by people, you mean... Crowley winced. Me. Sorry, Bob, it wasn't meant for you, buddy. Bob's LEDs turned red one by one. His motor dropped into a quiet growl. He approached the demon slowly. Crowley took a nervous half-step backward, but Aziraphale had an iron grip on his arm and held him fast. Bob trundled forward until he was an inch from Crowley's toes, then stopped. There was a brief, high-pitched whirring noise as his motor suddenly spun up in reverse, and a cloud of dust and grit coughed out onto the demon's shiny snakeskin shoes. I deserved that. Like he's a cat with a hairball. That was funny. So, notes. For those of you not already aware, L-Space was the creation of Good Omens co-author Sir Terry Pratchett, and the idea is that all complicated old libraries and bookshops are linked interdimensionally. He went to great lengths to describe exactly what sort of antique bookshop and bookshop owner tended to host portals to L-Space, and Aziraphale's and his bookshop exactly fit that description in every way possible. Furthermore, the librarian of Unseen Universe... I've been drinking water and Gatorade. The librarian of Unseen University's library on the Discworld is known to wander around in L-Space from time to time. He is an orangutan, thanks to a magical accident. He finds it preferable to his old human form and, as such, strongly and violently resists any attempt to turn him back again. His true name was believed to be Horace Warblehat, a fact which he has studiously endeavored to erase from history, lest someone use it as part of a magic spell to change him back. Poor Bob. He's just summoning stuff all over the place. So, that was chapter 4. Not sure when chapter 5 is going to drop. This was a bonus chapter, I believe, helping keep people's spirits up. So, thank you for joining me for chapter 4 of Roomba of Doom. And I will see you next time.